Welcome to the EchoCast, episode 128, The End? This is a podcast about the Division 2, its community, news, speculation, and updates. I am Bon Diesel, and I do Division stuff, such as this podcast, Twitch streams, and the occasional YouTube video about Division 2. Please take a moment to subscribe and rate the podcast on whatever platform you listen on. This week, we will talk about the state of the game and its TU12 talk, the Series X release, and my hands-on experience. We'll jump into the Division 3 speculation room, and we'll talk about my mom. There'll be a little bit more as well. I do want to thank our Patreon supporters this month: Hassan, Christian, Darren, Tim, PK, and Dale. As I said last week, there will be no more ads for the time being on this podcast. So if you could maybe drop a few bucks and support on the Patreon, I would very much appreciate it. That's patreon.com/bondiesel. I will call you out on every episode. You get a special little thing in my Discord. And I believe you also get a VIP little checkbox on my Twitch. If you have any other ideas for things I can do for patrons, I am more than happy to do it. Okay, let's jump into the state of the game recap. So this week we had Hamish, Trick, and Johan. Honestly, any state of the game with Trick is going to be dope because I genuinely, and I've said this before, I really love the passion that Trick has for their job. So, good episode. Hamish did forget to unmute his mic once again. It was hilarious, and I loved it. As for TU12, they jumped right in, telling us that there will be two phases or two waves of the PTS for TU12. The first one will start November 13th and go to the 18th, and the second one will go from the 27th to December 2nd. They will have some patch notes on the 13th, and some things that are going to be in TU12 will not be in the PTS, such as the brand new global event that was talked about a little while back. My little note in here during my my live tweet, which I do every week or every PTS or every state of the game, says PTS needs to be on console, even if it's only one phase. This is my hill to die on, and I will continue dying on it. They showed a whole bunch of new stuff that will be in TU12. So the first one is a new exotic assault rifle called the Capacitor. It has a talent called Capacitance, and it is described as shooting enemies' builds stacks of to a cap of 50. Each stack grants 1% skill damage. After 5 seconds, stacks decay 1 per second. For each skill tier, you gain 5% weapon damage. So I'll be using that. And it's a cool looking little bullpup assault rifle. I'm actually surprised it's not considered an SMG. The model that they showed makes it look like it's packing, I guess, a 5.56 mag, but it looks super tiny. So I don't know. It's kind of an interesting looking gun, but I won't complain. And the way you get this exotic is as a reward for completing 5 summit challenges and 1 ascent. So that shouldn't be too hard for most people. The next gun they showed was a new shotgun. It is called the Scorpio. It's that revolver shotgun that we just got in TU11, but it's the exotic version. And its talent is called Septic Shock. And it's basically, so this gun has a 7-round magazine. And for every round that you hit one enemy with, a specific enemy, it it does a different thing to that enemy every time, whether it's more damage or more. The interesting thing about this gun is that this gun's going to be the most useful when used by a group, specifically against like end bosses and stuff like that, I think. So this could be kind of like a raid gun. One thing I will say about TU12 is I've been saying for a while, I think this is the last big update. This seems like the type of gun they would have released for a specific raid or something like that. And I don't think we're getting any more raids. I think that the first two were the only ones we're getting. But this one kind of seems like it almost might have been like a remainder from maybe other plans that were thought of. But it's cool. It's an exotic shotgun. Looks pretty good. They also showed a exotic holster called the Waveform, and its talent reads like this: alternating current. Generate a stack of 3% skill damage on one of your skills every second, capping at 10 stacks. After 10 seconds at the cap, the stacks transfer to your other skill. The process then repeats ad infinitum. Sorry. So it looks like they're going pretty heavy with the exotics. This one appears to be another Black Tusk special unit gear piece, because it has a cell phone on the weight, like on the leg, on the drop holster on the leg, that has the Black Tusk symbol on it. So it seems like this is in a similar vein as the gloves that also have that. They also showed off a few named weapons. One of them is the Scalpel. It is a new model entirely for the rifles. It looks like a TAC 50, and it very well may be just a one with a little bit different shape or something. I don't think it's exactly the same as the one that the sharpshooter specialization carries, but it is very similar. And it's a named rifle, and it gets future perfection on it. So instead of future perfect, it's future perfection, which I actually like that little bit of wordplay. And what this one does is weapon kills grant one skill tier for 19 seconds, and it stacks up to 3 times. And weapon kills at tier 6 grant overcharge for 15 seconds. And that has a cooldown of 90 seconds. So that may be useful for some people. The next name weapon they showed us was it's that capacitor rifle. It's the regular gun version of it. I think it's a PDR is what they called it. And its perfect talent is perfectly in sync, and hitting an enemy grants 20% skill damage for 5 seconds. Using a skill or skill damaging an enemy with the skill grants 10% weapon damage for 5 seconds. Damage increases are doubled while both buffs are active at the same time. So it's funny, capacitor and this one are actually going to be pretty tied with me on which one I'm going to want to use, because I may end up actually using this PDR more, because I already really like NSYNC on my weapons. So and I'm not talking about the band from the late 90s, early 2000s. The next gear piece, the next new bit of content they showed was a backpack. It's a named backpack called the Battery Pack. This is part of the Empress International brand set that will be new with TU12. It's a skill-based brand set. Its first piece, you get skill health. Second piece, skill damage, and the third piece is skill efficiency. It's 10% for all of them. And 10% skill efficiency means 10% added on to all of the skill related attributes, which is pretty dope. Okay, the perfect talent on this battery pack backpack is perfectly calculated. Kills from cover reduce skill cooldowns by 15%. I believe the regular one is 10. I actually use this on my current skill build, and it looks like I will be replacing some of my pieces with this Empress International and hopefully this battery pack backpack. The last bit of gear I believe they showed us was this chest piece that's also part of the Empress International. It is called Caesar's Guard, and it has perfectly skilled on it. Again, probably going to be using this, because this will have skill kills have a 30% chance to reset skill cooldowns. Right now, I believe the regular one is 25. I do wish that percentage was a bit higher, 35 or even 40, because, a 5% buff doesn't seem like that big of a deal, but it certainly won't hurt my build that I currently have, so I'm sure I'll still use it. And then the definitely last thing they showed gear-wise was a new gear set, and I did not pick up the name of it. I'm sure someone else did, but it appears to be a Black Tusk based gear set, just off of the style of the gear and the icon for it. But the 4-piece talent with it is Tend and Befriend. So interacting with your deployed skills grants the skill 25% skill damage for 10 seconds. The buff cannot be refreshed. Interactions include using or deploying a skill, changing the skill's target, or healing a skill, which people always forget that you can do. The backpack gear set talent is complete uptime, which is canceling your skills will reset their cooldown, which is a pretty big one. The chest piece talent for this gear set is Best Buds, and it increases the damage buff from 25 to 50% of the 4-piece set. So TU12 seems like it's going to be a skill build's best friend in a lot of ways. They did show a picture of one of the apparel rewards that they're going to have for TU12 in season 4. It's called rigid, something like that. And it's a hood. It's kind of a tactical hood up kind of thing. I'm telling you, the cooler that this apparel gets, the better it looks. The more I really hope that if there is a Division 3, which we'll talk about that stuff in a moment, I hope it's based in winter again, because I'm telling you, almost all of this apparel that they're putting out in the last few seasons have been good, have been better than what we started with for sure. But they've been like all long sleeves and all like hoods and hats and shit. This game takes place in the middle of summer in Washington, D.C. It's like 95 degrees and like 90% humidity in DC. These clothing sets are in no way, shape, or form at all appropriate for the setting. But it just makes me kind of it makes me hope that they're working on something, because the style they're going for would definitely fit it a lot better. The final bit they gave us was that the new skill variant in TU12 in season 4, which will be rewarded by defeating Feilao, is the Achilles Pulse. It's a single target pulse that will identify vulnerabilities. It will identify hotspots, depending on your skill tier, how many hotspots it shows. And those hotspots will take headshot damage no matter where they are on the body. So if you pulse someone with this, it may have like a hotspot on their chest and on like their leg. And every time you or someone in your party hits that spot while the hotspot is active, it does headshot damage, which is a big deal. That's really cool. I love this. This skill sounds really cool. And from the way that Trick was talking about it is, I suspect it's going to have like either a really fast cooldown or it's going to have multiple charges that you can hit at a time, because Trick described it as you could, if you're skill tier 6, be able to hit multiple targets with this and allow your group or your teammates to take advantage of that headshot damage all over the place. So super cool. And that was about it for State of the Game. They showed off some screenshots. I think I actually made it this week because I took the time to actually put something in, and it was a good thing. They didn't talk about Nightmare, and I don't think they're going to. The event that we're expecting for TU12. I'm really glad that they aren't going to preview it, or at least it seems like they aren't going to show it in the PTS. The fact that this is something that's coming for Division 2 that we don't know anything about and nothing has been leaked about it, makes it kind of exciting. So I really hope that doesn't get ruined. I hope they're super duper careful with the PTS, that they don't accidentally leak it or have files in the PTS that will give away what Nightmare is. This Nightmare event, it could suck. Who knows? It may be boring and stupid. No one cares about it. That would be a bummer. but I really hope it's not. I hope it's, as I've said before, maybe a way for this game to go out on a bang or whatever. So, um, and anything else, I think there were some people who were speculating like, oh, maybe TU12 is going to have a new mode, and they just didn't tell us. I think those hopes should be fading pretty fast. I don't think they ever should have existed in the first place, personally. But I can appreciate people who want to dream. So yeah, good save of the game. Trick is great as always. Johan as well, and Hamish, per usual. And Hamish, I only say this because he posted it on his Twitter. He posted that he has no new lesions on his brain. From I believe he has MS, if I remember correctly, and that's a really good thing for him. So very happy for him. He's a good dude. I know some people don't in the community don't care for him, but he's been around since the beginning, and I appreciate that, and I think more people should too. Okay, so in some gaming news, the main topic I have this week is to talk about the Series X. I did receive mine on release day. I got it around like 12:30 or something, or 1:30. I can't remember. I actually jumped on stream and unboxed it and then showed it off if you want to go check out the VOD on my Twitch page. It was a bit of a rough experience because I'm an idiot. And I went on and we got hooked up. We got started. It worked fine. And I didn't realize that on my monitor, I had the HDMI plugged into HDMI 1, which on my monitors, you need to be in HDMI 2 to get 4K 60 hertz or 60 FPS. So that was an issue. And then I also didn't, there are a few settings I didn't realize I had to do. And basically we spent like 2 hours just talking about me setting up my Xbox. We did jump into Division a bit, which I'm going to talk about in a moment. But we jumped into a few things, and like I've seen all of the big reviewers and stuff talk about, I mean, the load times really are like striking. Like they're genuinely amazing. It's wild. Like I kept restarting the Xbox to try to get this HDMI to get my 4K 60 FPS. And it was just so funny how like restarting my One X was a process. It took a few minutes, which isn't a big deal, but it's a thing. You notice, right? It did not take very long. I mean, it takes seconds. It's so wild. But just in general, it's just really cool. Games I played before, like State of Decay 2, I loaded that up. It's running at 60 FPS now. And that game, if you ever played State of Decay 2, you'll remember that driving in that game was horrifying, not because it's a zombie game, but because of texture and model pop in. So in State of Decay 2, what happens a lot, if you get like a vehicle that's upgraded, or if it's just a fast vehicle, you can be flying down the road and see nothing in front of you. And then cars will pop up because the models, the hard drive couldn't catch up enough to load everything. So even hordes of zombies, including these like bloater zombies that will actually like destroy your car and kill you in it, will literally pop up right in front of you, like right in front of the car, like a few feet, because of how slow the hard drive was on the One X, in the Xbox One, and so on. That's not a thing anymore. One, it's 60 FPS. It looks really nice. They didn't upgrade the textures or anything. That game has kind of a style to it, though. Like, it's not cartoony and it's not like hyper realistic. It's like somewhere in the middle. Like the characters look like real people, but the color palette it's interesting. I think it looks really nice. And at 60 FPS, it looks really nice, having nice smooth animations and stuff. I was really impressed with it. But there are a multitude of games. I tried out a few others as well. The big one I need to do is to reload and get downloaded my Red Dead Redemption so I can finish my second playthrough. I assume it's still going to be capped at 30 FPS, but there's a lot of frame drops in that game in the original consoles. It's pretty smooth, all things considered, but just getting to play it at like a rock solid like frame rate would be really nice. The controllers, I actually grabbed 2 controllers. The one that comes with it is black. I also bought the white controller. I got a play and charge kit. That's the same old story as before. It comes with like an 8 or 10 foot USB-C cable, which is actually really nice. The controllers are great though. They feel really sturdy. They're very on the old Xbox controllers, if you squeezed them, they kind of flexed, and it wasn't bad. Like, they didn't feel like terrible or anything, but you could just tell like they were plasticky, and you could squeeze them and they would creak and groan a little bit. These new ones, I mean, you can really like, I don't know if the plastic is harder. I know that they moved a lot of the components into the handles that used to be up in the main body. So now the handles aren't just hollow. They have, I believe, the haptic feedback motors in them and stuff, the vibration motors. And you can feel that like the balance of the controllers, it actually feels a lot lighter, because since the motors aren't in the front of the controller, since they're in the back, they're closer to your hands. And so it actually makes the front of the controller feels lighter. So it makes the whole thing feel lighter, which is a nice thing. The buttons feel the same. The D-pad is nice and clicky, and it's a little bit more like the Elite D-pad, and it's nice. The share button works really well. I've been messing with that. That will actually be nice for like Division 2 photo mode if you're someone who's into that. The bumpers and the trigger feel really nice. The grips and both of those front buttons have like a really grippy texture on them, and they feel good. The triggers feel nice, and they have a good resistance to them, and they're nice and smooth. The bumpers have a really satisfying click, and they have kind of a different shape, just a little bit. The controllers are really nice. So, there have been some interesting things with the release of the Series X. The expected issues with some people I've seen are like DVD drives not working, some of the consoles not powering up appropriately or turning off and stuff. That just happens with the first run of a lot of hardware. Unfortunately, it's not excused. Those people need to be compensated and taken care of extremely quickly. But those issues are just kind of the way it is with electronics, especially when I suspect that these things were manufactured in a bit of a rush, and maybe the QA wasn't quite as high as it may have been normally. There have been some kind of hoax things out there that unfortunately grabbed some attention, where there were multiple consoles being shown like heavily smoking, and people saying that they thought their house was going to burn down and stuff. It looked weird, because when you think about it, there's nothing in the Xbox that should smoke that much, especially like without flame. Doesn't really make any sense. And some people showed that it's more likely that there's no smoke and that it's not burning, but it's actually people using like vape pens and taping down the button and hiding it behind the console, and then having the console suck the vapor up into it and then blow it out to look a lot like smoke. So far, seems like it explains it. I've seen no videos or pictures of any of the consoles actually like on fire, or even showing like burn damage or melting damage or anything. So if those come out, great. The thing is that, you know, there's a mix of fandom here. There's a lot of clickbaity stuff where people know that if they do this, they're going to get a bunch of follows and tweets and retweets and shares and featured on all kinds of websites and stuff. And I think that it's especially going to be bad now, because I think this is the closest the two main consoles have ever been to each other from like a quality standpoint, or a speed standpoint, or however you want to look at it. And I think that there's a little bit extra motivation for people to look for issues with the quote unquote other side of the console war. Just the same as ACG, the reviewer, posted that he had his PS5 bricked, that the hard drive messed up and it needs to be fixed. You know, if you are enough arguing with people about which system is best, then you can go after that as much as you want. My explanation is, these are electronics that are mass produced. Some of them are going to have issues. Hopefully there's no issues that are like huge problems with like more than like a 1% failure rate. Even that would probably be considered a failure by Xbox. So, you know, it seems like most people are having a plenty fine experience, just like me. But, you know, keep an eye out on the fake stuff, because, it's definitely out there. As for the future of the Series X, I'm really excited, because that little box is more powerful than my PC. And I don't have a bad PC. I have a nice gaming PC, I would say, for like most people. It's a 2700 Ryzen 7, 1070 Ti, and 32 gigs of RAM, NVMe SSD. I mean, it's a it's a nice little computer. So, but I can definitely tell that Series X is beefy and has a lot more potential than we're gonna see from it for at least a year or a few months or so. Hopefully Halo comes sooner than later, but that's starting to look like it's not coming until probably about a year from now. But there's other games like Hellblade 2 and such that I'm really excited for, and I really can't wait to see what games like that are going to look like. And man, playing games at 60 FPS, the last month while I've been waiting for the Series X, I've been playing PC games, a little bit of Anno, Age of Empires, some stuff like that, mostly Escape from Tarkov, and I play all of those at 60 FPS because I have 60 hertz monitors. And man, I mean, you won't be able to go back once you play it, man. So if you have a TV or monitor that can do 60 or 120, please make sure you have it set up right and you use it, because it's nice, man. It's really nice. Jumping into some Division 2 stuff. The first thing we'll talk about is my Division 3 speculation room. We'll talk a bit about that. There's nothing huge this week. I poked around a little bit. I didn't see anything super interesting. The main one being that there are more massive hirings going on for their unannounced project, whatever it is. Some have been taken down. There's some new ones. This is something else. I will say that these things tend to be brought to my attention on purpose. It's public information. It's not like it was like a scoop or anything. But I don't think that people would direct me towards these hirings if there wasn't something to it. I've joked that if this unannounced project is like a My Little Ponies game or something, and I'm just getting teased by some people, I will be very disappointed. I don't think it is. I'm still about 99% confident this is a Division 3 that's currently ramping up and heavily in the works as we speak. If you think about it, a lot of this seasonal content has probably been done for a while, and has probably gotten finishing touches from probably a relatively small number of people still working on the game, which is fine. I'll still die on the hill that Division 2 has gotten way more content than Division 1 had, and I think that they've supported the game in the big picture much better. I understand why not getting like a survival or underground mode. The summit just isn't it. I get it. I agree. I understand why people are stuck on those things. Like, well, we didn't get something like this, so that means that nothing that we got matters. And I just think that's just not true. We got a lot. We got a lot of content. We have a ton of missions. There's so many missions, and they're good. Like they're good missions. We got 2 raids. So even someone like me who's not really interested in that, I still respect it and can only imagine how much work that was. We got a lot of stuff. The PvP content has definitely lacked. I kind of wish that people would have, read the canaries in the coal mine a long time ago about that. That shouldn't be surprising at this point, but if you check out Twitter or YouTube or Twitch, you'll find that it is still surprising to some people. So I think that they've moved most everyone or a lot of resources over to Division 2 or Division 3. And if you take a peek at some of the studios who helped with 2, you'll notice that a lot of them are hiring for unannounced projects as well. So they very well may be making their own IPs or doing something different. I would be willing to bet that like Reflections is working on Division 2 or Division 3, good Lord, thing. And again, I said it before, I'll say it again. Getting to touch this Series X and play it and seeing what the PS5 can do. I really, 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 really hope if there's a Division 3, it's going to be next gen only. Being able to take advantage of these SSDs and these, increased specs and stuff like that. It would be really cool to see them kind of flex their muscles a bit graphically and game mechanic wise if they can depend on those specs. The funny thing is that if they do a next gen only game, the thing that will actually hold the game back the most are people that they still have to cater to who are on PC who are still using hard drives, because I'm sure there's still a decent number of PC gamers still using 5400 or probably more likely 7200 RPM drives, or just regular SSDs not NVMe, even though those are still pretty fast and shouldn't hold things back too much. But yeah, so more job postings coming and going all over the place in Ubisoft. So it seems like there could be something of brewing. Specifically talking about Division 2 and the Series X, I've played a few hours with it and checked it out. What I will say is that pop-in and stuff seems to still kind of be there. It's not as abrupt, especially like when you load in, when you fast travel, you don't have like an empty floor around you. All of that stuff is loaded. It looks really nice. The game is still running at 30 FPS on console, but it is much smoother. A big place that I noticed that surprised me was when I was scrolling through my skins for my weapons and for my gear, the gear dies and stuff. On my 1X, when you would scroll through, it would like lock up. It would lag really bad. It's buttery smooth on the Series X, and it's so funny that a little detail like that surprised me. But just the animations and stuff, like you can definitely tell that now it's at like a solid 30 frames and it doesn't drop at all. And while that didn't happen too much on my 1X, you would notice it here and there. Yeah. So yeah, Division 2 looks really good. Man, it really needs that 60 FPS option. Even if they could introduce like the 60 frames thing in TU12 and mark it as like a beta feature, like hey, if you use this, it's on you. It could lock up your game. It could make it not work. That's on you. Use at your own risk. If it's a thing that they just don't have time to test and implement as they typically would. I don't know. I would just love to see these new systems get to play this game at just a little bit higher quality. Okay. I didn't have any listener questions this week. I was going to kind of wrap up the show with a quick update about my setup. I did get a new chair. It's the Autonomous Chair brand. I hadn't really heard of it much. I actually saw it on a Facebook ad, but I got it. I actually got their cheapest one. It's called the Mayo chair. It's great. It's really nice. It's got a nice big old seat for my big old butt. It's got a real nice comfortable mesh back, which I like a lot for cooling purposes. And it looks really sharp. I got the gray one. And the nice thing is the seat is kind of that mix of like black and gray. So you aren't worried about like butt stains and stuff, some sweating, get real sweaty playing some Division 2 PvP. You won't notice it. Hopefully. Okay, so right now is when I'll say, if you're here for the games and that stuff, we're done with that. I'm actually going to talk about something that happened this week with my mom, who actually passed away, and give you a little background on what's going on with that. I'm going to be straight up. It's not really like a feel-good story. It's more of like this is real life, and this is a situation. So if you're not here for that, I totally understand. But this is almost kind of a cathartic thing for me to get to just kind of talk about it. So if you're gone, I appreciate you. Thank you. Check out the Twitch, check out the Twitters, check out the Patreon, and have a good one. So I found out this week, yesterday morning, my mom had passed away. She passed away of liver failure. And I assume or believe, from complications of cirrhosis. So, a quick, too long didn't read about old Von Diesel's life. I was born out west. My dad was in the military and was stationed out west in the United States. My mom was a townie that lived near the base, and they all kind of ran together as 18, 19-year-olds, partying and doing all that stuff. They started dating, and then they had a baby and got married shortly after. I think maybe while she was pregnant. They definitely didn't intend for me to exist, and they tried to make it work with a marriage, but it just didn't really. And the unique situation I went into is that my mom, obviously, from what I said before, had some issues with substance abuse and stuff. And actually had my dad take me when my dad moved back to where he grew up, 2,000 miles away in the eastern United States. And the reason I say that is if you're not in the States or you don't know much about divorced families or single parents, I don't know what the rate is now, but only maybe 10 years ago or so, the percentage of single fathers in the United States was less than 5. It's a very, very small percentage. Most single parents are women. So I'm sure that's evened out a little bit. It might be up to 10 or 15%, but it's not common. And I was very lucky. My dad is a very kind, sweet man. He's very hardworking. He worked 2 or 3 jobs my entire childhood while he was going to college, going off the GI Bill. And my mom, I would see her in the summers for most of my life, up until I was, like 7th or 8th grade. And when I was a little kid, I didn't really get it. I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know why mommy was goofy at night and things like that. And we did a lot of fun stuff together. I have a lot of good memories. We used to go camping all the time. She used to train wild horses and train them for rodeos and stuff like that. She would take colts or even grown horses and basically tame them and make them rideable. And some of them were very successful, like in rodeo competitions and stuff. She was very passionate about horses. She worked as like kind of like CNA jobs and stuff like that. And I would go out in the summers and I would see her. And as I got older and older, I started to realize why she would act so weird once she got home or at night, and sometimes on the weekends all day. And it was because she was abusing alcohol pretty heavily. And she got remarried after my dad. It took me. And so a few years later, there was a guy there when I would go, and I actually ended up having a half brother, who's a few years younger than myself. Fortunately, that person was also had some issues, and I had some rough years. And I went through some stuff that my dad actually never found out about. I never told him until I was older. I don't really want to talk about it on here. It's, I've kind of dealt with it and I've gotten help with that stuff. But long story short, when I became like a preteen or early teenager, I basically just said to my dad, like, I don't want to go out there anymore. I don't really want to be around that because, I was in just some straight up dangerous situations as a child. And, as I got older, involving drunk driving and just a lot of really risky stuff and being around people who were pretty risky. And it got to a point where I recognized, like, I don't think it's safe for me to be out there anymore. And that caused a pretty big rift, understandably. A big issue beyond some of the stuff that happened and was, that I saw was some pretty heavy, like, I don't know if I'd want to call it like emotional abuse or not, but I was a CPS worker for a couple of years, and when I was in that class, I remember sitting there and hearing the definition of emotional abuse and realizing that it definitely was. So, but a lot of guilt tripping and things like that. So, basically every single day or every single conversation would revolve around, why don't you love me? And this is hurting me. You hate me, don't you? Why, do you even want to be here? Do you even want to come out here? Do you even care about me? Blah, 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 blah. And that just wears on a kid, as an adult now, if people are like that, I can handle it. I can stand up. But, when I'm 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, you can't do that. And you believe it. You feel bad, even though you shouldn't, because you aren't portraying those emotions or feelings. So basically I cut her off and I stopped, especially around the time I was 17 or 18, I basically had cut off communication with her entirely and just didn't want to deal with her. And that lasted for quite a while. So that was when I was 17, 18. I'm 32 as of today. Well, I was 32 earlier this year, but you know what I mean. And over the last couple of years, we had communicated a little bit more, just here and there, just checking in. And then when I had my daughter and when she was on the way, her contact stepped up a lot. It was, her grandbaby that was coming. And even though I didn't really feel a connection or feel very close to her anymore, and I frankly didn't really want to, I also didn't want to, like withhold her entirely from getting to see her grandbaby. So we would send her lots of pictures. We do, send videos and post videos on social media and stuff so she could see them. And we intended on at some point of going out there once it seemed like it was viable to travel 2,000 miles with a child, which we weren't looking to do for a couple more years. And honestly, I thought things were just kind of going the way they were going, and it seemed like things were fine until about a week ago, when I got contacted by a couple family members who I hadn't talked to in 10 plus years. And they kind of gave me some weird, kind of not really super clear information about what was going on. But what I kind of knew is that she had gone to the hospital and things weren't looking too good. And I was kind of being told like months or weeks, or, it was kind of really vague and unclear what was going on. And so I actually talked to her and called her for the first time in many years. And we talked, and it sounded like things weren't going too good. And we got to kind of hash some things out and clear some things up. And I felt, we kind of had a good opportunity to, kind of settle some things and say some things that probably needed to be said. And it was nice. And then a couple of days passed and I hadn't really heard much. And then I got a call from a man she had married about 4 or 5 years ago, who was with her. And basically he was telling me she was about to go, which I did not expect. I did not think we were dealing with that kind of a situation. And so she actually at the moment couldn't even speak. She was pretty far gone. And they could tell she was kind of holding on for something. And so they called me hoping that if I would tell her like, hey, everything's okay and it's okay to kind of let go and things like that maybe it would help her out and maybe she'd be able to kind of, go in peace and stuff. And so that's what I did. And we talked, I talked to her and reassured her and talked and then that was it. And, there's definitely some issues, that side of the family, I think wanted me to drop everything, go out there, but there's lots of extenuating circumstances that that wasn't realistic or possible. And so no one even actually told me she passed. I had to find out from a Facebook post. So that was really hard. And I don't know why I'm telling you this. If you want me to be totally honest. I felt like, it just would feel good to get it out. And just maybe for other people to hear that, like, I don't think there's too many people who have like perfect lives. And I think everyone's lives are a little messy. And I think things about the thing about things like social media and stuff is, those things really allow us to kind of cater an image of who we are or what's going on in our life, and things like that. And I think the situation where I had a parent pass away and it wasn't like a storybook ending, I didn't get there at the last minute to say goodbye. She's gone and I'm sad, but maybe not as sad as I should be because I just don't feel like I've known her for a long time. And I feel bad about that. And how selfish is that for me to feel bad? I don't feel bad enough, It's just, I don't know. I feel like I wanted to share this because it's obviously a big thing that happened to me. And it will affect me for the rest of my life. And I want people just to maybe be able to see like, oh man, his situation sucks too. And maybe I'm not alone in this. And maybe I'm not the only one who has this crazy family situation or this sad situation or whatever. But yeah, that's it. So she taught me a lot. I do have a lot of good memories with her that don't really block out the bad, but maybe they shouldn't. I learned as much from her of how to be a good person, both her showing the example of being a good person and also showing that people can be flawed and have mistakes, but still not be bad. My mom wasn't a bad person. She just had a struggle and she fought it. And I believe the last few years she was clean. And I'm really happy that it seems like she married a man who seemed to really love her a lot, who treated her really, really well. And it's just kind of an example and a reminder that, you know, things that you know, your weaknesses can catch up to you. And sadly, hers caught up to her. And I'm sad that my daughter is never going to get to meet her, that she'll never get to meet my daughter. I never really looked at my mom's Facebook. And when I did, I found that she had taken a lot of the pictures I had posted on there of my daughter and posted them herself, showing off and bragging about her grandbaby. And, you know, I kind of didn't realize until this was all over, you know, how much that little girl meant to her. And now, you know, in hindsight, which is always 2020, it makes me wish that things, you know, would have gone a lot differently. I've also always been a big person into not dwelling too much on things that you can't control or change. But, you know, this is probably one of those things. It's a pretty good example of how when you learn a lesson like this, or when you go through something like this, you know, if you don't learn from it, then it was all wasted. And I hope that myself can learn from this, and maybe anyone who has heard this little story can learn from it too. And that's where I'm going to wrap this episode up. You know, the Twitch, the at Bond Diesel on Twitter, you know, the Design by Humans. So check it all out if you want. That's all I have. So until next time.